My name is Dr. Shelley Weiss, and I'm going to do this about 10-minute live presentation on how to assess children who have neurodevelopmental disabilities and insomnia, behavioral insomnia. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in. I'll try to answer them. I can also answer them during the presentation or after. So thanks very much for joining for this Facebook Live presentation of Better Nights, Better Days. I'm just going to use low tech. So instead of showing slides, I'm going to use these pages, and I just want to show you a little bit about our project if you want more information. So it's called Better Nights, Better Days for Children with Neurodevelopmental Disorders. Our website is there, ndd.betternightsbetterdays.ca. And myself and Penny Corkum are the co-principal investigators with a great team of researchers. And if you want more information or you're interested in potentially participating in our research study, you can look at our website for more information. So thanks for joining us. So first of all, I'm going to just talk about insomnia, because we can't really talk about assessing insomnia unless you know a little bit about what it means. So insomnia means that children have trouble either falling asleep, staying asleep, or they wake up too early in the morning. This is despite an adequate opportunity for sleep, and it has to be frequent, more than a couple of days a week, and chronic, more than a couple of months, to be called insomnia. And it can't be explained by another problem. So when somebody has insomnia, it's not that they're waking up because they have seizures or other physical or mental health problems. They're just waking up because they can't sleep through the night. So before we talk about assessment, we need to think about what we're going to assess, because children with neurodevelopmental disorders have many reasons why they may have insomnia. So I'm going to show you another slide just so you can see some of the things that we have to assess. So all of these problems can lead to insomnia. Trouble with the sleep environment, not sleeping in a good space or a comfortable space, family and parent issues such as parents not agreeing on consistency and how they want their children to wake or sleep, trouble with health, with illnesses, taking medicines, or having things like gastrointestinal reflux that wake people up at night, trouble with development. So obviously children with neurodevelopmental disorders may have sleep problems because they are having intellectual problems and don't understand the need to sleep and need to have different kinds of parenting to help them sleep better, or sorry, parenting consistency and regulations to help them sleep better. Children can have social emotional problems. There can be parenting practices that are different, and things that happen around sleep practice patterns, such as children who may need to eat at night through they may not sleep well. So you can think about testing. You obviously have to think about the factors that might affect sleep in children in the first place. So how do we measure sleep? So here's another picture, and as you can see, we go from more subjective over here to more objective way of sleep. So when we why a child might not be sleeping is obviously talk to the child and talk to the parent, and we want to know sleep, if it's consistent, where they sleep, if any issues wake them up at night. So all those factors I just talked about, we're going to parents and the child in an interview to try and figure out what kinds of problems are keeping them up at night. The second is that we might use questionnaires. So we have many standardized questionnaires to use to ask about sleep. We might ask you as a parent to keep a sleep diary where you write down what time your child goes to bed and what time they wake up at night. And when they wake up, what happens and what time they wake up in the morning. And this might help us as a clue to assessing a child's sleep to see why they're not sleeping well. And then the last two are more for the clinicians, which is something called actigraphy and sleep studies, or the short form is PSG, polysomnograms. And I'll talk about all these different 5 ways of assessment over the next about 7-8 minutes, and then you can ask questions. So the first is the questionnaire, because we talked about the interviews. There are many different kinds of questionnaires. Your doctor may have asked you or shown you this one, which is called BEARS. It was developed by Judy Owen. And this is the kind of questionnaire that your doctor or nurse practitioner might use as a reminder about what questions to ask to and trying to assess does not sleep well at night. There are some more sophisticated questionnaires that we use in assessment, but this is often used more in research or a sleep clinic. This is called the Children's Sleep Habit Questionnaires, and it's just one example of the way children sleep. And we do this by asking questions about all these different problems that can interfere with sleep. And you can see they include daytime sleepiness, whether a child has any kind of breathing problem at night, parasomnia such as sleep terrors, how often they wake at night, whether they have anxiety about sleep, how long they sleep, and the last 2 are about sleep onset, if they have trouble falling asleep, and if they resist falling asleep at bedtime. Once we have the answers to a questionnaire like that, it doesn't actually give us a diagnosis of why your child's not sleeping, but what it does is it gives us a sense of where the problems might be and whether we need further studies or just further questions, or how we're going to evaluate, I'm going to move my camera so I look better, how we're going to evaluate how your child is sleeping. The next part that I told you about is sleep diaries. So your nurse, doctor, nurse practitioner, or other caregiver may ask you to fill out a sleep diary about your child's sleep. And what that does is it allows us to look for sleep patterns over time. So instead of just asking you a question like, how did your child sleep last night? We might want you to go home and fill out a diary for a week or 2 and then come back. And we could actually have some more objective data in front of us about, does your child have a consistent bedtime, a consistent wake time, how often they wake at night, how long they stay up at night. So some of you may have filled out sleep diaries already, but these are very useful in assessing why a child doesn't sleep at night and to give us a clue about where to start to make your child sleep better. We have some kind of fancier sleep diaries such as this one, which not only asks about whether when your child goes to bed, like I'll show you the other side. This is a more, I'll put it out right side up. This is a more simple sleep diary. So you can see it has each day of the week and it has the hours. And in this one, we would just ask you to put an X when your child falls asleep and mark the boxes when they wake up. And obviously we don't ask you to do this in the middle of the night. We ask you to do this each morning you get up, and you just remember approximately when your child slept and woke up. So we're not expecting you to stay up all night. This is just a more sophisticated kind of sleep diary, which I'll show you, which has also the days of the week, but just has more questions. I know you can't see that. I'll bring it up closer. This has more questions about your child's sleep. So that's the part about assessment, which is interview. 2 parts are actigraphy and polysomnography. So these are not commonly used, but I'll just so you know. So this is what an actigraph looks like. I'm going to show you a picture. Hold on. So it looks a bit like a sophisticated Fitbit or a watch. So what we do is we ask a child or an adult to wear it on their non-dominant wrist and to wear it 24/7 except when they're having a bath. It looks like a watch, but what it actually does is it tells you by the movement of your arm whether you're awake or sleeping. So for example, if your arm is still for several minutes, we can infer that that means you're sleeping. This especially works in a child because as an adult, you might be able to just stay still when you're in bed, trying to fall asleep and not actually be sleeping. So the actigraph may say you're sleeping when you're actually just lying quietly. But as the parents out there know, there aren't many children who just would lie still but actually not be asleep. So it is more accurate in children. And what the actigraph does is every minute it records movement, and then we download that information into specialized computer software, and we can tell by whether the child's or the person's arm is moving or still, whether they're awake or sleeping. So you can tell the difference between a sleep diary and an actigraph. A sleep diary, we rely on the parent to tell us when their child was sleeping, and obviously you're not awake all night watching them. And an actigraph would be more objective because you would actually get some data on whether someone's awake or sleeping. One important thing is that the actigraph is mostly used in research and very specialized clinical scenarios. So it's not something, we expect people to go out and buy so they know if their child's sleeping or not. But in our research, which is Better Nights, Better Days for Children with NDD, we are using both sleep diaries and actigraphs to try and get data from different ways, both from the parent and from the objective assessment to know whether children are sleeping or not. Just for your interest, I'll show you what an actigraph data looks like. So this is a week. I'll just show you each line is a different day in the life of this person who wore the actigraph for 24 hours. And what you see is wherever there's a black line means that their arm was moving. And we've just put with a blue line where there's a lack of black, and this is where the person is sleeping. So let's say this is about, 9 at night, and this is about 7 in the morning. So you can see that this person actually has, this isn't most children, but this is what we want after our research. We want children to sleep like this who are having trouble with insomnia. This is what somebody's sleep looks like who actually has pretty good sleep. It's pretty consistent. It's continuous. You don't see a lot of black in the middle of the night, so they're actually not having wakings at night. Whereas this one is another picture of somebody's actigraphy data, and you can see that they're kind of awake and sleeping in short bursts, different times over the 24 hours, and this person's obviously not a good sleeper. So the last thing I'll tell you about is polysomnography, which I'm just going to find a picture to show you. I'll find it right here. So rarely does a child need to be in a sleep laboratory. Definitely if we do an assessment, we're not worried about any kind of breathing problem or any other kind of unusual sleep problems, seizures, unusual parasomnias, periodic limb movements. We usually don't need to put children in sleep labs. We can usually assess and diagnose sleep problems in children, both those who are typically developing and children with NDD or neurodevelopmental disabilities without a sleep lab. But if you do need to be in a sleep lab, or if your child's in a sleep lab, as we any logic monitors, so we're activity from how the muscles move, so we can tell whether people are in rapid movement or just non-rapid eye movement sleep. We look at breathing. We look at how the muscles under the chin work. We look at the heart rate and the abdominal muscles. So as breathing, I meant oxygen or CO2 levels, and then their actual breathing mechanism. And you do not have to try and understand this, but I'll just show you in case you have never seen it. This is what a polysomnogram would look like. The top is the EEG or brainwave leads that tell us whether someone is awake or asleep or what stage of sleep. Then we see the breathing leads, and in this person, this purple line along here, this person actually stopped breathing. They had a pause in their breathing. And then we have the muscle leads, and finally at the bottom, which you can't see well on here, we have the cardiac leads. So just to summarize, we have many ways to assess children and adults who have any kind of sleep problems. We start with interviews, obviously examining the child. Sometimes we will do special questionnaires. We might ask you to keep a sleep diary for a week or two, and then more in some clinical situations, but the majority, especially in children, we might use actigraphy or a sleep lab or overnight polysomnography, where children actually sleep in a lab overnight. So that is kind of a quick summary of how we assess children who have insomnia and other sleep problems. I'm just going to show you this slide one more time, just to emphasize that this is work done with myself and Dr. Corkum on this project this research on children's sleep and how we can improve it. It's called Better Nights, Better Days for Children with Neurodevelopmental Disabilities. We've developed with our amazing team and Sydney Dale McGrath, our fantastic research manager, a e-health intervention, which means that we're going to try and help your child learn to sleep better by teaching you quite a lot about their sleep in a very interactive 5-module intervention as research. For our research, you can go to our website, and we hope that it's very effective, and eventually we will actually be able to make it more available to parents of children who have neurodevelopmental disabilities. So I'll just see if there's any questions, and I'll give you a minute. And then if there's no questions, I hope you enjoyed this presentation of Facebook Live, and it will be recorded so people can watch it at another time. And we just have the website put up there by Sydney. So I'll like it and see if that works. I don't think I can like myself, but I will try. Oh, actually there is, oh, I think the comments, I'm gonna look at the comments to see if I can read them. Nope, that was Sydney saying, feel free to type any question into the text box. Okay, so as there are no questions, I'm going to close this Facebook Live session, and it will be recorded if people want to watch it at a later date. Thanks for your attention. Bye.